The latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Want to update the case that we talked about a bit last week of Caitlin Weaver, Aurora, Colorado. Maybe it was even this week. You know, the days run together. 24-year-old Caitlin Weaver, of Aurora, Colorado, who was killed by a person in this country illegally. Her dad went public making an appeal in the case because of how badly it was handled by local authorities in Arapahoe County, Colorado. You'll remember.
She really spent her life wanting to help people.
John Weaver says his daughter Caitlin was a born caregiver, protective and supportive of siblings and strangers alike. A psychology major, she worked for a suicide hotline before taking a job at a drug rehab center in Aurora. It was there, her dad says, she found her calling in life.
She was really trying to make a difference in their lives every day.
It was after one of those days last July, as she drove home, her boyfriend on speaker, a nearby Ring camera recording. Caitlin Weaver was killed by a Jeep barreling through a residential neighborhood, the speed limit 45. The driver, investigators say, was doing more than 90.
She didn't even see him coming. That's how fast he was going. She was effectively killed instantly.
Michelle and John Weaver removed their daughter from life support 2 days later.
How do you fathom that loss?
She was 24. The suspect, who had kids in the car with him, was 15. He was not only driving illegally, he was in the country illegally.
DA's office said that this would be a no plea deal case, so they were not going to offer any concession.
That changed, he says, when the Arapahoe County District Attorney's Office changed hands a few months later. Under DA Amy Padden, the teen, who faced up to 2 years in youth corrections for vehicular homicide, was offered 2 years probation if he pled guilty.
Why the change? If he had taken a and recklessly just shot it and killed somebody, this would be a different case. They would be pushing it completely different. So there's no deterrence.
No financial liability either, despite nearly $1 million in medical bills. The Jeep was uninsured, and the juvenile's mom says he took it without permission, so she isn't responsible either.
Immigration and the criminal justice system and all these things landed together one day in Aurora, and now I sit here today without a daughter.
An organ donor, Caitlin Weaver, continues to live on in others, while the person who killed her lives free. Investigators say his mom initially planned to move him back to Colombia. He has now filed for asylum.
I hope that he makes something of himself and that he remembers the chance he got.
Mr. Weaver is more considerate than I would be in those circumstances. Well, here's the update to the story. It's a positive one, and it highlights the difference between the administrations. U.S. and Customs Enforcement, Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrested the 16-year-old alien from Colombia in Aurora, Colorado. And as part of this, they're moving to deport him. Well, so his mom doesn't need to move him back now because ICE is going to move him back. The Trump administration is going to move him back. Part of its routine operations, ICE arrests aliens who commit crimes and other individuals who violated our nation's immigration laws, and so on and so forth. So this is the difference. Yeah, I mean, it's some measure of justice for a family that experienced a loss they should not have experienced. For more on this and other border security-related matters, Chris Clem, former HHS advisor and retired chief patrol agent for ICE, joins us in studio. He's in town for Mike Ditka's Gridiron Greats Hall of Fame Gala Dinner. We'll talk about that as well. Chris, thanks for being with us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here in studio with you both.
So we talked to you about this before, but I mean, just that piece of it of, the federal law enforcement like ICE paying attention to the stories that pour in from around the country still, because So many people are still here illegally. So many people who pose public safety threats are still here illegally, despite the best and ongoing efforts of Tom Homan and company. But this is really what we're talking about. This case, the Trump administration couldn't prevent what happened, but they can provide some measure of justice and ensure it doesn't happen again at the hands of people who shouldn't be here, and that's what they're doing.
Right. Illegal immigration for decades has been talked to about, especially by the left, as victimless crime, and it's just immigration. Here's an example of where somebody in the country illegally took a life. Whether it was an accident or not, but when you're doing 90 miles an hour with kids in the car and you kill somebody, my heart was breaking listening to the father on, as we came on air here. Unfortunately, this happens all across the country on a regular basis, and we don't hear about it unless somebody raises that voice. And this administration, from the president to the attorney general to the secretaries to the border czar and everybody in between, are really highlighting these things because Americans need to know this. President Trump ran on cleaning up immigration, illegal immigration, and border security. I mean, think about the three big pillars was securing the border, and he's done that. The immediate crisis has ended.
Yeah.
He's done the interior enforcement. You're seeing that with the public safety and national security threats. And then one of the things I was working on was addressing the child trafficking issues that were complicit under the last administration. So when you hear these stories of ICE going in there and getting this 16-year-old, it's good. It's good to get that person in handcuffs and in removal proceedings, not some bogus fake asylum claim. Because you know what? His asylum should be from Americans.
Right.
Because he killed one of ours.
Yes.
He can go back to Colombia.
So then the case of Ava Moore, beautiful black young woman, 18 years old, got into the Air Force Academy, out kayaking, was killed by two of this Venezuelan hit and run jet ski accident. They're on the lam for 2 days. They, hit other cars on the way out of the park. What's going to happen to them? Because Governor Abbott wants to give them the death penalty, which I think, I'm all for capital punishment, but Dan's not. He's against it, but that's fine. But what's going to happen to them? So will they serve their sentence and then be deported, or what are we going to do with them?
So typically, obviously you have federal supremacy, so the feds can come in and take over the case. But what we like to do, and what we did and continue to do, is let the state charges run its course, right? So we get the conviction, because once they have that conviction, it makes the federal removal process that much easier, because you are now a convicted felon, and if they serve time in state penitentiary or whatever, then ICE can go in, and Texas is a cooperative state.
Yes.
So ICE will pick them up from jail and get them immediately removed, because the process will play out that way. That's the beauty of ICE detainers and why we need to end sanctuary policies. If you have a criminal who has been convicted or charged and is serving time, let's make that transfer in a jail, in a sally port, in a secure area to the ICE officials, so they can do the removal process, not let them go and make us chase again.
Yeah,
so,
Joe Arpaio from Maricopa County, the sheriff, he had the ICE division right in front of the Maricopa County jail. So as soon as they walked out, boom, they grabbed them.
Cooperative policies are safe and effective and efficient and save us money and reduce the risk to the community when you let a convicted, criminal that's illegally here in the United States back on the streets because of political reasons. We absolutely have to get that right. And I love it when I hear statements from Attorney General Pam Bondi and Secretary Noem and Tom Homan and Stephen Miller from the White House saying, we're going after these sanctuary cities. We're going to end these policies. And of course, they immediately, and how do you do that? Pocketbook. We're going to restrict fundings. And then, of course, we have the judicial coups that come up, and then they get these injunctions and lawsuits, which is, causing, it's all by design from the progressives, right? To throw every roadblock you can into the way, because everything Trump is doing, whether people react emotionally what he's doing, but if you follow the steps and you go back from day one, executive order, putting this act in place, all of these things are done legally. It's just that the irrational, emotional left and some of these, progressive judges are not thinking factually. They're thinking emotionally and saying, oh, we got to stop that. And that is hurting the American people. Again, everybody on social media and then becomes a lawyer, becomes an expert in tariffs to court rulings. This administration is doing everything that it was put in office to do when it comes down to immigration enforcement. And they want to clean the slate so we can actually shore up that immigration practice and policy so we can bring the best and brightest and those that can actually help America, not do these type of things that are harming Americans.
Well, and the antics of members of Congress, too, from LaMonica McIver in New Jersey to the overheated rhetoric. AOC recently reiterated her call to abolish ICE. I mean, it's rather remarkable. Jasmine Crockett, the social specialist Jasmine Crockett is saying, she's being targeted. It's a dangerous thing. They're threatening to arrest her and so on and so forth. And all these Democrat members of Congress want to do is do their oversight abilities. They want access to ICE detention centers, which, as far as I've heard, they're happy to abide. But, you can't just do a surprise visit. You just have to call and say, well, we want to look at what's going on in that facility, and then show up and they'll let you tour the facility. And it's funny, too, on that score, because this is one of the things they're saying, they're being prevented. From May of 2021, the Biden administration denied a group of 12 Republican lawmakers access to a DEA migrant facility in El Paso. GOP members were restricted from entering the El Paso Intelligence Center despite making multiple attempts. And they leveled the charge against the Biden administration that now the Democrats are leveling erroneously against the Trump administration.
Look, I dealt with this firsthand as the chief in Yuma, as the deputy chief in El Paso. I can tell you this. When I was the chief in Yuma, and we were ground zero for the border crisis, I had 2 Democrats show up to my sector. One was Senator Mark Kelly, and one was Senator Gary Peters, because he was down there at the Yuma Proving Grounds and the Marine Corps Air Station, and he added that trip. So I was glad that they came down there. Not that I got anything out of those 2 senators, but they came down there. But no other Democrat congressional delegation came down to see what was going on firsthand. Why is that? Oh, because it was the Biden administration. But the last 2 years of Trump, 45, when I was the deputy chief in El Paso and the majority became the Democrats, I couldn't move a day or go 100 yards without tripping over a Democratic congressional delegation to come down there and point fingers. To even include Dick Durbin down there to, I got a great story about that guy coming down there. We were separating what we thought were fraudulent families. Like we had because El Paso was busy. And if we saw or had documents or something that wasn't right, that this may be a trafficking situation or a fraudulent family, we show them the process of people coming in, and we're like, well, we just move these into the bullpen. And we wait for ICE to come in and do the investigation. Bullpen? I go, yeah, just put them in the bullpen. He's like, that's a little dehumanizing, putting a call. And I was like, well, it's baseball, a bullpen. It's just terminology.
Yeah.
Like, and so I told the guy giving the tour, I said, well, please don't use the word bullpen in front of Senator Durbin.
A green room.
Yeah.
Something
I mean,
very fluffy and
thank goodness. Listen, to your audience and those that are voting here in the state of Illinois, we got to get somebody in that position that's not thinking that a bullpen could be. This was about criminal human trafficking and family fraud. And he was worried that we were using the term bullpen. That's who is representing
that's the
people.
Democratic Party.
Well, and Saca Durbin,
it was ridiculous. But back to the point is, remember, it was the time when AOC came down there and claimed we were forcing them to drink out of toilets and all that kind of stuff. All that happened while I was there. They're laughable because they're so hypocritical on all this immigration. And I'm glad that we have an administration and I don't like calling them talking heads, but the ones that are talking on behalf, when you look at the Attorney General, the secretaries, Tom Homan, Stephen Miller, they're calling them out on this nonsense. And somebody who was behind the scenes for the first 100 days of the Trump administration, let me tell you, be very proud of what they're doing. There are people in the National Security Council, Homeland Security Council, that are on calls. I was part of that 6 days a week, sometimes 7. And the amount of energy and synergy going in to execute the mission on behalf of the American people. And I was strictly on the security side of things that I was part of. I wasn't part of the business side of tariffs and all that. But let me just assure you, they are working round the clock to do what's right for the American people. And again, somebody who had spent 27 years working for the government, had a 2-year break and then did it for 100 days. I was impressed. If I didn't have family commitments, I would still be there. They asked me to be there for 100 days or more. I said, I can do 100 days. It's an honor. I'd have done that standing on my head. But really to be behind the scene even further into the administration, and to see it play out, it's incredible. And we should be proud of what's happening. Noise aside,
Well,
it's working.
Yeah, and there's a lot of noise from the Democrats. Their talking point now is that people are disappearing in the middle of the night. There's a sign in front of my church that said, people are disappearing. What are you going to do about it? What's actually going on? And didn't Obama do the same thing in not offering these people due process?
So yeah, they most of them have their due process. They've been ordered removed, and so that's where the priority was. Remember, going into it through the campaign season, I was out there speaking. I probably spoke on this show, but we were targeting public safety and national security interest and risk. People that have already been in the system. You don't get multiple bites at the apple. You do kind of, but at that point when ICE is coming to look for you. And disappearing people, I mean, we changed vernacular to make it sound so terrifying. UFOs are coming in as disguised as ICE agents and disappearing people. You're crazy. These are criminals that are here illegally, and ICE is doing their job, trying to be less disruptive, but they have to do it in the middle of the night. You know why? Because you've got leaks in the media and politicians that are putting up roadblocks to keep law enforcement from doing their job. These people are going to get that final bite at the apple, but they have to be arrested first when they're running the streets.
All the left knows is demonization.
Yeah.
So these are Pinochet death squads. That's what they want you to connote. I mean, they're just they're just despicable. I mean, they really are. And in the direction of law enforcement, and with all of the victimization of American citizens and, frankly, other people here illegally by violent predators that shouldn't be in this country. I mean, for them to run interference is just, it's the most sickening thing. It really is.
Well, think about this. I mean, what about the people that are still recovering from Hurricane Helene that only got a $750 paycheck? I know. But yet we've got members of Congress flying to El Salvador to see Kilbar, whatever his name is,
Abrego Garcia.
Yeah. To protest him, this Maryland father. No, this illegal alien who is a criminal associated with a gang. And that's, I mean, again, it's the virtue signaling and the gaslighting of the left that has caused this problem, and it only gets worse when they talk. I mean, they're losing more and more ground because I think more and more Americans are getting hip to this. Thankfully, now it's interesting. We mentioned you're in town for the for Coach's Gridiron Greats Hall of Fame Gala, and actually it was the immigration issue that sort of connected you to Gridiron Greats. Yeah. Back during the height of the Biden border crisis, Border Patrol had in 2022, I think the number was 14 suicides. And as the chief, I knew I couldn't change policy out of the White House. All I could do was focus on my sector. And so I had 2 suicides in my sector, and I was like, I got to do something about the mental health and resiliency of our workforce, And I won't say that it was the border crisis that led to those suicides, but it didn't help, right? If they're suffering somewhere else in life and they didn't feel value at work because of the administration. I basically hired some people to come out there and talk about mental health, and that's where we brought Rachel Barbeau and then Randy Grimes, who's a former Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and his story, and Sonia Moschmeyer, who worked with Randy at the time, came out, and we had them come talk. And then a month or 2 later, we got Brian Urlacher.
Yeah.
Brian, he lives in Arizona, and obviously, we know and love him here, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And came out to the border and saw it, and basically
was he shocked?
Oh, shocked.
Everybody
was shocked. But the message was, when I'm the chief, you're gonna get agents and employees. He's just the company line, right? Because you're the boss. But when you can get somebody like Hall of Fame linebacker like Brian Urlacher to come out there and say, "Thank you, we love you, we support you," and we've been able to do that. I think we've taken 9 or 10 trips since I've retired. Dan Pastorini from the Oilers days,
sure.
a whole laundry list of people. There's been probably a dozen or so players in different areas of Texas and Arizona where we brought them to the border to thank the men and women of the U.S. Border Patrol and let them know that that they're loved by a lot of people. And so that's how this all kind of got started.
And the other thing that was great is that Urlacher went public, too, talking about it, too. So he's a great spokesman for the cause.
Absolutely. And that's basically how I got connected with a lot of the NFL legends as part of this program. And so this is the second year I've been invited to come up here and attend and of course, look, I'm a huge football player fan, right? So So to be able to be around these legends is incredible. It's for a good cause because it's really supporting those that I grew up watching that didn't have the $1 trillion contracts, right? That are dealing with medical issues down the road. I tell you, it's great to be around that and exciting. And again, Brian and I went through Super Bowl Radio Row the first year, and he and I on all sorts of different shows, from the Pat McAfee show to radio shows, talking about this. And it really brought attention to a whole other audience that was just, whatever, I don't know about this. I just hear it's just a
sit back
talking
and not
point,
do
right?
anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Watch our country get invaded.
Yes, absolutely. And there's a lot more out there that get it, and you get the head nods. They can't always do it because or talk about it for whatever reasons. But I think that the momentum is going in the right direction. Obviously, because we got the Trump administration taking care of it. But to your point, people are waking up and seeing that the nonsense that the left is spewing.
The Hall of Fame dinner's tonight at the Hyatt Regency O'Hare in Rosemont, 6 p.m. GridironGreats.org/Hall of Fame. Chris Clem, former HHS advisor, retired chief patrol agent, ICE. Chris, thanks so much.
You got it.
It's 8 a.m. WIND Chicago.
Is the trade war with China about to escalate again? I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. President Trump just posted on Truth Social, so much for being Mr. Nice Guy. After he made a trade deal to lower massive tariffs he says devastated China and put it in grave economic danger. The president wrote in all caps that China has totally violated its agreement with the U.S. Republican Senator Mike Rounds just told Fox Business.
President is correct when he says I'm going to put tariffs on until we get a good, fair trade deal. We want free trade. We want fair trade. But it starts with putting the hammer down.
Now, the day after a federal trade court blocked some of the tariffs on Chinese imports and many other countries,